Thanks for joining. I'm glad you're here. You know, it doesn't say all the names under the videos, but let's see if we have any other folks through the list. Rogue Bean, how are you? Good to see you, Rogue Bean. Marjorie, thanks for joining. It's always good to see you here. Ed, thanks for keeping the Slack alive.
Oh, my pleasure.
You're the man. I'm very excited that you're here. If you ever wanted to speak, let me know. We'd love to have you.
I need to get some permission from Google to talk about that. I used to be on Glass, so I could tell you some stories.
That sounds great. Awesome. So we'll get started here. We have 37 hosts. If you could just admit people in the waiting room while we go through it, that would be great. But I think we'll get started. We have 30 participants now, which is great. Thank you for joining New York Augmented Reality. What's up, Alex? We have a awesome set of speakers tonight. I'm trying to pause the music, including folks from NVIDIA, 60AI, Google, Vermeer. So it's going to be a really great event. And Barry and I worked extremely hard to put it together. So we think that you're going to love it. New York Augmented Reality. So far this is our 19th event since we started. So we've had 18, this is 19, I guess, since we started in November 2020. And since then, our group has hosted over 70 speakers from across the augmented reality industry, which is really great. I've learned a lot, and I hope you did as well. Last month, we crossed the 1,000 member mark. So that's in a little over a year, which is really exciting. And today we have 1,180 members. So I think we're probably one of the fastest growing groups in augmented reality. And this is thanks to folks like yourself who are joining, and also the incredible speakers that we have with us tonight. Now, I wanted to take a minute to thank Barry Seff, because without him, this meetup wouldn't be possible. And he's like the father of New York Augmented Reality, fostering the group like his own child. So Barry, if you could take a moment to introduce yourself and share a word of wisdom with the group, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, I'm Barry Saff. I got a new job. As Andy knows, I'm now in the electronics industry. So thank you all for your support and helping me get there. It's been a long time coming, as Andy knows. And just wanted to say what's up to everyone. Hope all are having a great new year. And not too tired of hearing the buzzword that you may or may not like. I won't even say it. Happy times. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
And why do I have a raincoat and an umbrella, just by the way?
Because you're Mr. Marvelous Seff.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. We have two upcoming events on the horizon. February 9th, we have a daytime meetup, and that's going to be with folks from across the world. So trying to get them on the meetup, because 6 p.m. is a little too late. So we have a great agenda that we're working on firming up. So that's February 9th at 12 p.m. So grab your lunch and join. And then on February 28th at 6 p.m., we have our next evening meetup. So about a month from now. And I think we have Ultraleap joining us and some others. So that should be fun. Those are upcoming events. And then, due to popular demand, I've shortened my news segment from 10 minutes to about 10 seconds. So here is the latest news in brief. Microsoft and Qualcomm partner up on a custom chip for future HoloLens headsets, and also collaboration on the Qualcomm Mixed Reality Development SDK Spaces XR. And Qualcomm also purchased the Ukraine-started, now California-based AR development tools company Augmented Pixels this past week. Snap purchased Compound Photonics. This was almost a year after buying Wave Optics. And this was confirmed by Carl Guttag, who was at our last meetup. And he also noted that Snap is going to use an LCOS display on their production glasses. So that's number 2. And then lastly, Mojo Vision, also a company who's joined us in the past, raised an additional $45 million of funding to help bring smart contacts, smart AR contacts to life. And this was announced after several partnerships with athletic brands. And they had a stat which was interesting, that 83% of athletes that use the technology said they would benefit from the data that they provided in the moment. So that's the news. Hey, Fa, good to see you. That's the news from this past month into 3 segments. Okay, now I'm honored to have with us Bart Trzinadlowski with us. He created a really cool game on SnapLens Studio called Strikeforce, and he's here to introduce it live with us tonight. Bart.
Thanks a lot, and congratulations again to you and Barry for hosting this amazing meetup, and coming as far as you guys have. This is really, really cool stuff, and I'm glad to see the New York community prospering. I used to live in New York. So just really quick about me, my name is Bart. Most recently I was at Apple doing AR prototyping and ideation work. I left the company in September. I've taken time off to just kind of goof around and work on some fun stuff. Just purely for fun and to learn about Snapchat's platform. I built a full game. So I worked on this from, I think I started beginning of November and I released it December 22nd or something like that. It's it's basically a full-on helicopter shoot 'em up game, kind of based on an idea that I had years ago for HoloLens, and I wanted to just kind of revisit that for fun, and learned a lot about the platform. I think I can fairly say it's one of the more complicated lenses out there in terms of content. It's an actual full game basically, and so I would like to I think either at the next meetup or the following one, it'll be up to Andy. Do a little talk about kind of how the game works, incorporate a little bit of technical details on how, what it's like working with Snapchat's platform to develop something that's a little bit more complicated than just a face filter. If you want to give it a try ahead of time, in that next several weeks, just scan the Snap code, or you can visit, my Twitter page has I don't know, I'll post a link in the chat. I posted an update about it, and there's a link to the lens directly, but you should be able to, if you have Snapchat, scan the Snap code and try it out, or just search for, I think if you know how to actually use the app, a little bit of a challenge with Snapchat's UX, search for Strikeforce, and hopefully you can find it. So look forward to speaking to you guys at the next event or two.
Thank you, Bart. And
thanks a lot.
Yes, I forgot to mention, but we look forward to having you at the next evening meetup. It should be fun.
Awesome.
And really exciting to see what you're doing on Lens Studio. Really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on. So, a quote by Barry Seff: "Knowledge is power, community is strength, and augmented reality is everything." Thank you, Barry. We realize that behind the rose-colored holographic glasses are isolated developers and designers looking for ways to connect with the community, and here are some of the things we're doing to help foster community. We're on Slack, so the channel's starting to pick up a bit. Phil Stewart from Preloaded posted a job posting a few hours ago. He couldn't join tonight, but you could check that out and some other, and stay in touch with the group through our Slack. So Barry, if you could post a link to the group, that would be great. We also have the Augmented Reality newsletter that highlights the latest news every month. Barry could post a link there as well. So stay in touch with the latest news if you want more than just 3 quick snippets a month. You can get 6 quick snippets a week with the Augmented report. And then lastly, we recommend using the chat to stay connected during the group. So reach out to those you admire via a DM, or just say hello to everyone. Okay, now without further ado, I'm excited to move on to our presentations to learn more from our speakers who, all in their own right, are pushing the augmented reality industry forward and making the impossible, what was impossible, possible. During the presentations, feel free to post your questions or comments for the speakers, and they will be addressed by the wonderful Barry Seff at the end for a Q&A. We have NVIDIA, a stealth startup, Google Daydream, and Vermeer with us tonight. First, I'm excited to introduce Richard Kerris. He's the Vice President of the Omniverse developer platform and IGM of Media and Entertainment at NVIDIA, with a career spanning Apple, Lucasfilm, and Amazon AWS. Richard's experience combines driving marketing and product development with a focus on bringing emerging technologies to life. At Apple, he directed developer relations and managed pro apps. At Lucasfilm, he served as CTO, managing research and development, IT, and information services. Richard has given keynote addresses at GTC, Asia Broadcast, China Joy Expo, and now New York Augmented Reality. He currently serves on the Bay Area board of the Visual Effects Society and is an active member of the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers. Richard, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks. Great to be here. Hi, everybody. Let's see. I'm going to take you through our Omniverse platform, which is, does augmented reality and VR, and I'll get to that, but it's a pretty comprehensive platform. So I know there's been lots and lots of questions about it, especially recently with that. Well, I will say it with the metaverse comments that coming from everywhere is what is metaverse, what is Omniverse, and things like that. So I thought what I'd do is I have a few slides, some videos, show you some different examples of what the platform can do. So let me share my screen here. And we'll get going. Okay, show sound. Boom. Okay, you should see my first slide up there, right? Hopefully everyone sees it. Great. So got to start with some eye candy. Let's see some of the work that Omniverse with other software products can do. So check this out. It's an example of different technologies on the platform. That's being rendered in real time, by the way, as is that. So lots of different examples there of what the platform is being used for. Oops. At its very core, and the reason why we're so excited about everything that's going on is we believe these virtual worlds are going to be really the next era of innovation, the next level of the web. And if those of us that remember the early days of the internet, the challenges from that first initial .com boom, I think we're going to have some, things that we've learned from that will help us connect these virtual worlds now. And what primarily that was the advent of HTML. Once HTML came and unified the core plumbing of the internet, we had the web evolve, and now it is what it is today. We don't think twice about what site we're going to, what device we're using, et cetera. And I think that that's a good paradigm to talk about the things that we're doing on the platform to ensure that these virtual worlds are consistent and connected, so you can teleport from one to the other and do whatever it is you want the platform to be doing for you. We look at there's two areas that are really focused for for Omniverse, and one is digital twins. So in the industrial sense, creating digital twins of factories and design elements and things like that, as well as virtual worlds for 3D creativity. And come on, slide, move. There we go. Whoops. Omniverse has many different ways to output. And I know that here with this community here, AR and VR are key. And what we've been doing to build on Omniverse to output to these things is bringing our kind of technology into the mix. So we're going to have the first full frame, real-time ray traced VR. We're about to get ready to bring that out to beta and early access, things like that. We already support streaming and AR, so whether or not you're using a headset or you can actually use devices, tablets, and things, and have a window into that 3D world. Lots of different people and different types of companies have been checking out and using the platform. We started shipping our enterprise version in November, and just 2 weeks ago announced that we've gone GA with the individual version, which is free and downloadable at nvidia.com/Omniverse. You can see here a number of familiar types of logos and various use cases. Since we're short on time, I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. But the key thing here to know is that the platform has a wide variety of use cases. And so that's, I think, one of the reasons we're seeing it to be so successful. We designed Omniverse not to replace anything that's out there, but to connect and extend and enhance what existing workflows. And one of the big things about these virtual worlds is the need to get content created. With us bringing Omniverse out free to the individuals out there, there's right now over 40 million creators in the world, and we're working on the platform tools to help democratize some of the complexities of creating 3D. Those of us that have been in the industry for a long time know it's not easy to create 3D. So we've been doing things with with our platform to make it easier to do, whether it's audio to face and other things. And as I said, the biggest announcement we had just 2 weeks ago was now making it available for any RTX-based system. So you can be on a GeForce RTX laptop and have Omniverse with real-time ray tracing, collaboration capabilities with other artists, connections to your favorite software apps and things like that. So you can start creating with it right away. We built this with our partners. So we work with Autodesk and Adobe and all the others that you see listed here, and lots more that are in development. So again, the goal here is to bring what you do today and help bring new capabilities with Omniverse. A few new things that were announced at CES a few weeks ago. Nucleus Cloud, which is in early access, allows you to one-click connect your virtual world with somebody else's virtual world anywhere in the world. And so that means that if you're both using Omniverse and you're working on a 3D environment, let's say you're building a room or you're designing a car, or you're designing, AR content for games, things like that, you can actually be in that 3D space at the same time. And you can be working on things simultaneously, even though one might be on one application, somebody might be on another application. But we're also working with the companies to provide 3D assets. So you see a number of familiar logos there and more coming all the time. Machinima is our game storytelling tool that we're getting more and more companies now providing content from games that allow you to reimagine telling stories using that. Audio to face, I think, is one of the ones that people here would be very excited about, because what it does is it uses an audio track or your microphone to be able to drive animation, facial animation in real time. And I have a little video, I'll show you some of the capabilities of that. But this is just one of the steps that we're taking to use AI to help make it easier to create complex 3D objects and things like that. I have one more short little video, then I'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that are going on behind the scenes. So here's some stuff that some of the individuals have been doing with the platform.
White rhinos and black rhinos are both gray?
So let me, I'll stop sharing here and just talk a little bit about some of the things that you saw and why they're relevant to the AR community here. What you saw was rendered in real time. So back in 2018, there was a few things that took place that kind of created the big boom, if you will, for what we're seeing today. And one of those key things was RTX, the ability to have real-time ray tracing on a chip. And now we have that from laptops to data centers. Omniverse is designed around RTX, scalable, cloud native. So you have all this kind of capabilities that you have at your disposal from the platform from the get-go. And this means that you can be rendering the kind of fidelity of the things that we were seeing there and adding physics and other types of simulations to it and do it all in real time. So the output of Omniverse supports streaming out to a monitor like we are here, supporting tablets and mobile devices, as well as headsets. So we're working with most all the different companies out there on the various types of headsets from AR and VR and things like that. It's our goal to really work with the industry to make this platform something that kind of becomes the operating system of this next generation of virtual worlds, if you will. So that's kind of the high level, quick view of Omniverse. It is a free for individuals. We have almost 200 tutorials online. We have various social channels and things out there. We have forums, communities, etc. So our goal is to see the community really bring this and do amazing things with it. You know, you can extend it, you can develop on the platform, you can connect it to other things, stuff like that. So that's kind of the Omniverse in a nutshell. So there you go. And I'm happy to answer any questions or anything that I can help with.
Thank you, Richard. Really exciting to see what you guys are doing in video.
So
Yes,
I
thank you
see some
so
questions here in the chat. Do you want me to just kind
Yep,
of?
I'm going to pass it off to Barry. He'll help you out
Okay.
with the questions.
I mean, you're welcome. I'm just going to read them off. There were some really good questions I see there. Okay, so one question is about a digital twin process. Do you elaborate on the digital twin process? I know for many other companies that help enterprise customers create digital twins like Palantir, the process is very resource intensive. Does NVIDIA guide customers through the process or just hand them the platform to use?
Yeah. So yes, we work with key customers on what their digital twins needs are. There's a wide variety of use cases of digital twins. So we'll start with robotics, one of the really interesting and fastest growing areas. You know, we're seeing robots used more and more in factories and all kinds of different use cases. Those robots have to be trained. Now, typically you could plug the robot into a computer, program it, and send it on its way to do what it's done. But if you have a digital twin of the environment where you're training that robot, let's just say it's a factory and you want to train the robot to go pick up heavy equipment that comes in a loading dock and bring it to where it's supposed to go. You can train that robot, as I said, traditionally, or if you have a digital twin of that factory, you can have a digital twin of the robot. And why stop at one? You could have 100 robots and train them all at the same time using AI. So they become much more sophisticated by the time you download to the actual physical robot. But there's many other kinds of use cases. We're seeing digital twins that Lockheed Martin is doing to understand wildfires. We're seeing digital twins that Ericsson is doing to understand how 5G signal propagations from antenna placements in the city can affect things. So the idea of what a digital twin is and the various use cases is something that we're just starting to really scratch the surface with. But yes, we do work with customers on how to implement it and what kinds of tools that they're currently using, and bring those into the mix as well. So I see another question. I apologize, but I'm still somewhat fuzzy about what Omniverse is. Is it HTML for the metaverse, or is it a rendering engine, or is it a content creator tool? Blah, blah, blah. It is a platform, and it's based on USD, Universal Scene Description from Pixar. You can think of USD as HTML for 3D. HTML unified the plumbing of the internet to allow us to have the World Wide Web as we experience it today. There's lots of virtual worlds already today, but not all of them are interconnected. So if I teleport from one to another, I don't have a similar experience. What we believe USD is going to do is help unify that plumbing. So I can teleport into that factory, or I could teleport into a virtual concert, or I could teleport wherever. And my experience, the lighting and materials, the textures, the dynamics and physics that are taking place will be consistent. So that way, the only thing I'm really going there for is the experience. In much the same way you go to any website today, you're not thinking about the video and the text, and you just take it all for granted because it's all unified. That's what we mean by USD. Now, what is Omniverse? Omniverse is a platform that's based on that brings over 20 years of NVIDIA technologies to your existing workflow. So if you're a 3D creator and you're making content for games, then by connecting to Omniverse, you also have at your disposal other AI-based tools that we've made, like that audio to face example and things like that, multi-GPU rendering. So our thinking is that we kind of raise the tide for all boats by connecting into the platform, using what you do today, but getting more capabilities out of it based on the years of technology behind it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what physical technical barriers seem prohibitive right now, battery, display, et cetera, but once solved will drive a leap forward in AR. I think we're seeing great advancements. I mean, heck, I'm doing real-time photorealistic rendering on a laptop. You know, I was in this community for quite a long time. I don't know if you see behind me, I have an actual Pixar image computer back there that used to take days, if not weeks, to render a Phong shaded thing. So we've come a long way really quick in a short period of time. And I do think that the challenges that we hear about with battery and heat and other things that are affecting some of these headsets and stuff, I think those will get resolved. But the key thing is you're not having to do just one or the other. You can use, a mobile device as a window into that mixed environment world. You can use tablets and phones and things like that. So I think it's important to support them all, but I do think we're seeing those advancements come together relatively quick. Okay, I've done several computational media startups.
A new question.
That's just he wants to connect with you. Okay, so one more question. Is NVIDIA developing their own use cases, or is it focusing on developers to discover them?
We are focused on the developers. Now, we do have some example tools, Machinima and others, that we really build as more a showcase to what's possible, but we are not in the business of making tools. We are in the business of making a platform. We have a great and modern development platform that's part of Omniverse. It's all Python based, easy to get up and going. We want the developer community to go out there and develop things. It's not our business to compete. We want to help bring those things to life.
Awesome. I think you answered this question already, but maybe it's not clear. I guess that's a confusion going on. Can you elaborate on Omniverse versus Metaverse? And we'll finish up with that.
Sure. The metaverse term has been used so much over the past few months. It's kind of dizzying. But in its simplest form, we think of it as just a description of virtual worlds. Simple as that. In much the universe, in planets, the metaverse, and virtual worlds. Omniverse is a platform to connect those virtual worlds. That's what we do. So metaverse is kind of everything there. We're a platform to connect those things.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard. And I'm excited to see how the Omniverse continues to progress and also see some of the augmented reality use cases push forward as well.
Oh yeah, there's some really fun stuff coming. GTC is coming up in March. Be sure to sign up for it. We're gonna really do some cool stuff there.
That sounds great. We'll see you there.
Yeah, feel free to post a link there.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah, it's always a great event, so I look forward. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. So next up, we have, pardon my pronunciation, I can never get it right, Miesnieks. He is one of the most renowned thought leaders in the augmented reality industry through his influential blog posts. He is the founder and CEO of a new stealth metaverse startup. He was co-founder and CEO of 6D.ai, the leading AR cloud platform, which was his third AR startup and acquired by Niantic, the company that created Pokemon Go. And he also helped found Super Ventures, a company investing in augmented reality. He built AR system prototypes at Samsung and had a long executive and technical career in mobile software infrastructure before jumping into AR way back in 2009. It's good to have you here, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Hopefully everyone can see me. So yeah, I really just wanted to take the opportunity to make some connections in New York. Like selfishly, I have just decided to move to New York. So I am leaving San Francisco and will be living in New York full time in June. So anything I can do to start getting to know the locals here who are into AR is sort of what I'm keen on. Andy invited me to show up and talk a little bit about what's on my mind, at the moment, like what's happened since Niantic acquired 6D, and obviously was trying to get me to talk a lot about what my new startup is. And sadly, I'm not going to reveal any specifics on that, like who I'm working with or what exactly we're building. But I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, the ideas that are informing that startup, and also, Richard's intro around Omniverse. We will be building a good part of our product on top of Omniverse. So if any of that stuff sounded interesting and you actually want a job building that sort of stuff and you've worked with USD or understand it, hit me up and I'll share some more about what we're doing. But for people who don't know 6D or don't know me, what 6D was, it was really a company that came out of a couple of insights around AR that we'd figured out over the previous years, which was for for AR to really feel real, the devices and the content really needed to understand the real world in 3D. And to do that, you really needed to have this quite a persistent 3D model of reality and some semantic understanding of those things. And that idea of like building this 3D model of the whole world that AR devices can understand ended up being called the AR cloud, and that that concept really caught on a few years ago. And obviously Niantic bought us in order to use our technology to help them build a 3D map of the world by building it into all the Pokemon Go players that are out there wandering around. But we've seen pretty much every major platform company start investing into 3D mapping programs. Snap, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Apple. Everyone's sort of building these 3D maps, and they're also starting to build the the localization and computer vision SLAM layers to let these visual positioning systems start to figure out where you are down, trying to get close to pixel level accuracy, not just GPS level accuracy. So with that, I think that problem is basically done now in terms of market opportunities for startups. Anyway, it's definitely not solved in terms of solutions in the market. I spent the last couple of years both advising Niantic and Qualcomm on their AR strategies, and while also sort of incubating this idea that I'd been thinking about with my new thing. And so what I think is the most interesting trend around AR, at the moment, at least from my point of view, from a software point of view, is that over the last 2 years, I saw 3 trends all kind of collide into one thing. And the first was a behavior change. I got two kids, boys aged 12 and 14, and I just watched them do all of their socializing, while they're locked down and staying at home. All of their online socializing was taking place in 3D spaces. They weren't so much chatting, with text chat or even video chat. Everything was getting together in Minecraft or Roblox or Fortnite or any sort of similar place to that. They weren't really interested in headsets, but they were really interested in 3D. And I saw that as a sort of leading trend of a behavior change of the way we're going to socialize and play together. It won't just be 3D games. And that's, that trend has obviously been picked up, over the last year by everyone now. It's kind of labeled the metaverse. The second big trend was around seeing how 3D computer vision, 3D game engines, and virtual production in cinema have, things like The Mandalorian and everything have pretty much all collapsed into the same thing. Like when we were doing 6D, they were all completely different disciplines. And now, with Unreal 5, tools like Omniverse, computer vision, deep learning, 3D computer vision, things like NERF, and some of the rendering that's possible there. The ideas around doing photoreal 3D models of the real world used to be these huge, complicated projects with teams and custom software. And now everything's just pretty much off-the-shelf software. It's still a fair bit of work, but you can get, for the first time, truly photoreal 3D representations of reality on consumer devices without really needing, with off-the-shelf software and without needing sort of anything custom from a team point of view. So that was just kind of fascinating from the background we'd come from at 6D on the computer vision side. And the last thing, the last trend that we saw colliding was the idea of a digital twin or a 3D game map, like in Spider-Man or Call of Duty, and a map like Google Maps or Apple Maps. I saw all of those things collapsing into the same thing as well. And that was, fascinating to me. Again, they'd all been completely different things. Like you talk about a map, and are you talking about the game map that you're playing, the Minecraft world that you built, and is that a map? And what's the difference between a 3D scene and a map? And when you see, some of the new stuff that Apple's starting to push into, their 3D maps, that was all becoming the same thing. And so those 3 trends around a shift in social behavior to 3D worlds, a ability to kind of do photoreal rendering on consumer devices, and this whole idea of 3D mapping in the AR cloud and these sort of playable maps, all becoming the same thing. Those 3 trends, I thought, created a really interesting opportunity to build a consumer product where you're building a playable copy of a digital twin, a part of the real world. And that was kind of the idea that we've based this new company that we're building around. And I think that's going to be kind of the way, the on-ramp to connect the virtual world and the real world to each other. And so, I won't get too much into specifics there, and I'm happy to take tons of questions around the stuff. But for anyone knowing, my background and sort of thinking about what I'm finding interesting at the moment, it's that particular space. And so, the last fun aspect that has really taken me a while to come around to personally is, how does crypto fit into all this? How does Web3, play into this whole thing? And, the best sort of comment I heard was, look, I'm pretty sure 99% of this whole crypto stuff is just a scam and financial speculation. but 1% of it's going to change the world, and I just can't tell which 1% it is right now. So I've spent a fair bit of time trying not to throw out the baby with the bathwater as I thought about these ideas around how do you enable decentralization, for want of a better term, but the philosophical alignment that I've found interesting is that when it comes to AR, a huge chunk of the content that we're going to experience is going to be experienced in public places, publicly owned places. A lot will be in private spaces as well. But you're going to have, this idea of reality itself is scarce. There can only really be, in the physical world, there can only be one object in one place at one time. But when you're starting to talk about virtual layers, you can have an infinite amount of content, in one physical place. So who gets to decide, what you see? And right now, if you're playing a Niantic game, Niantic decides, what's there. Or if you are in, wearing Facebook's glasses or Snap's glasses, they will have the power to decide, what is on the home screen of your glasses. And I found it, quite exciting when you start thinking about, well, this is a really powerful, potentially powerful idea, that the ability to mediate content between physical spaces and virtual content could be done in a open way. And I think that is a philosophical shift that I've had over the last 12 months or so, as we're thinking about how do you build and distribute products that get around the app stores and the sort of control that the owners of those app stores have over what content and experiences people have. And you can start to now almost create a spatial app engine where everyone can see how those decisions are being made as to what content's being presented. So with all of that, it's kind of big sort of regurgitating. I'd love to just start opening up for questions and start a bit of a conversation. I'm happy to go way off topic, not necessarily talking about this specific idea, but anything I've written or said or tweeted publicly over the last little while, and pick up and run with it. As well as people are always fascinated about what it's like selling a startup. What was that process like, and how did it go about it, and what else is going on in the AR universe. So
Awesome.
I'll jump in. There's one question already here in the chat, but do I see a
Can
massive... Yeah.
Can I start with a question that is personally from me? Thank you again so much for all that you've just shared. Amazing. We'd love to hear about your stuff at the right time. You talked about a behavioral impetus for, I think, driving you personally in your company, it looks like. I guess I can relate to that. I have 3 teenagers and 1 soon to be a teenager. So I'm just trying to understand, you said that kids, or the teenagers you saw, I mean, I'm not sure if you have like other like solid data, but you're saying that they are getting involved in 3D orientation, and I guess in a non-gaming context. Is that what you were saying? I just want to understand that more clearly, because I don't know what my kids are doing. They're on Snap. Maybe I should watch them more, besides all the crazy YouTube videos that they blast. But I mean, we got them headphones for the holidays and whatnot, but I just see them mostly on Snap, chatting with their friends. They're not really gamers anyway, or we don't buy them games. So just like, can you explain more about that?
Yeah, I guess what I try and pay attention to is when people are using products for the wrong thing, like not for what the product was designed for. And I remember once walking out and seeing my son playing Fortnite, except that all of the avatar, they were like this one little part of an island, and there were like clumps of 4 avatars, and each group of 4 was in exactly the same skin, and there was kind of like 6 or 7 groups of 4 scattered around. And they were kind of just walking back and forward, and I said, like, Luca, what's going on? What is this? And he's like, oh, Dad, it's a fashion show. I was like, what? And he said, yeah, like we've all, I'm with my friends and we all got the same skins and the same emotes. And we all kind of go and we show off our emotes, and then everyone votes and says who had the best show. And, my just, this is not what I thought Fortnite was for, and, a month or so later, it was kind of Christmas Eve, and we're saying, look, dinner's ready, come for dinner. And he said, no, I can't, because I've arranged to meet all my friends in Minecraft. And, I said, what do you mean? You can play Minecraft anytime. He's like, no. We've all spent the last couple of months in this private server building like gifts and castles for each other. And tonight we all arranged to meet and exchange gifts. And we didn't, I was like, okay, that wasn't what I thought Minecraft was for. And, another time, son said, look, can I call my friend to help with my homework? And I said, sure, and then I'm like, hang on, what are you playing Roblox? You told me you'd be doing homework. Like, no, this is where we meet and we're talking about our homework. And I was kind of realizing that, these platforms weren't, they weren't just the game that they were made to be. And that to me, it was before all, Facebook changed their name, and before, VR chat and Rec Room and stuff really took off. But to me, they were like really interesting little signals that, showed that this idea of coming together in a 3D space and doing stuff that was kind of social, and the gameplay itself was kind of a adjacent activity to what they wanted to do. I thought that was really interesting. And then I thought, well, what if it was the real world? Like, what if the real world was where they were meeting, not, a digital twin of the real world, and they could do, real world stuff, not just virtual world stuff. And that was kind of one of the sparks.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, virtual gathering places. Yeah, it's really sweet. We had the spatial people there, but it's just, I mean, not to knock on them, but it just didn't really give me that real feeling of really connecting. But I think that's what we're trying to do with this group. Just as you may know, as one of the points of having this meetup. Okay, so Alex had a question about.
Feel free to unmute, Alex. Feel free to just hop in, and whoever has a question, if you want to just.
Yeah, can dialogue.
Yeah, we'll keep it open.
Yeah,
for a few more minutes.
I'd love to ask a question when available. Okay, cool.
Mass adoption.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, the idea behind that digital double, where there's like an augmented world, really speaks to me, and I think that's something that's like very exciting to me. So 2 questions. Obviously, everyone's talking about wearable tech, and we all know that the phone is pretty unnatural for using AR for long periods of time. So my first question is, do you see that adoption happening anytime soon? And then my second follow-up to that was, do you see there being any way to prevent the world, this AR world, from just becoming ad city and just having ads blasting from every perspective? Is that inevitable, or do you think there's a way we can get around that?
First question, and I've got definitely insider knowledge on what a bunch of companies are doing. We are not going to see consumer adoption of AR devices at scale anytime soon. I think we're going to see the first, I'd call them consumer viable devices at the end of this year. Viable in the sense of like a Nokia Symbian phone was a viable smartphone, not in the sense that the iPhone is a great smartphone. And I think we're going to see probably 3 or 4 generations of, devices before sales really take off. A sort of fact that I always point out was that everyone talks about the first iPhone being when smartphones took off, but it wasn't. It was the iPhone 4. That was when Apple's sales really kicked off, and they started selling, tens of millions of devices. So same with the Apple Watch, it was like the third watch that took off. So even when we get to a really, exciting, the people like us get excited about, I wouldn't be betting my business on an audience of AR consumer users for several years after that. So, my new company, I'm not even calling it an AR company, or we're not even doing AR, so I'd call it like an AR ready company, not an AR company. Second question about advertising. I think it's going to come down to, so firstly, I think there's always going to be incentives for platform companies to give stuff away for free and fund it through advertising. That scares the hell out of me because of the additional like personal biometric information that glasses are going to provide, and the ability, way more than like, Facebook posts to, manipulate us. So from that point of view, I think it's inevitable that there will be products like that. I think though that a lot of it's going to come down to the devices themselves. And I think if you are buying a device from a company whose business model is based on ads, you're setting yourself up, because that company's got every incentive to push ads. Where if you buy your hardware from a company whose business model is not based on ads, they've got incentives to give you a different type of user experience. So yeah, we'll see.
We'll just take one more question from Matt, who posted on the chat. I told him to ask it live to keep it more exciting. So Matt, if you'd like to ask your question to the other Matt, we'll close with that. Thank you.
Yes. Hey Matt, it's Matt Monday, actually.
Hello. Yeah, I saw you there.
Good to see you. I have many questions for you as always, but what you said about the app stores was interesting to me. And so I'm curious if you perhaps see an open protocol for AR in the future that might be similar to like an HTTP. And maybe you could just like speak a little bit about like how you could see these different skins or filters working interchangeably among a system.
Yeah, well, the more I've dug into this, and the more big companies have talked about their plans, and smart people, I'm with NVIDIA, and Pixar. I think USD is, a really most likely candidate to be that common, language that describes 3D environments, and that'll probably include, understanding 3D reconstructions of reality to, that AR content runs on top of. I think that there's a lot of interesting potential in blockchain around identity, and sort of having a transferable, verifiable identity between platforms, like using wallets to sign in and that sort of stuff. I think there's the layer that I'm very, very hopeful gets opened up is the localization layer, or the visual positioning service layer. At the moment, that is technology that's proprietary to every platform. If you use ARKit to localize, that won't work on devices that don't support ARKit. And I think AR Core is trying to be cross-platform, but it's still still all Google. So I hope that we get some interconnectivity at that layer, because that's going to be literally the algorithm and the data structures that say that this point in reality matches this point in the virtual world, and this is how they line up. And if one person controls that connection, then we've got problems.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. It was really great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Next up, we have Matthue Roth. He's a writer at Google, where he helped create the personality of the Google Assistant. He also authored the novel Nevermind, The Goldbergs, the picture book My First Kafka, and designed a bunch of video games. More recently, he was shortlisted for Best American Short Stories. He keeps a secret diary at Matthue.com. Great to have you, Matthue.
Hi. Let me present my screen like we practiced. Okay, there we go. Hi. I'm going to switch it up a little. I'm going to talk about telling stories. I am a UX writer at Google, where usually I write things like send or save file. And yeah, I've written a bunch of other stuff which I had in my notes to tell you about, but I'm not going to because you just did. I also have an MFA from Brooklyn College in writing fiction, and this is relevant, I promise, and you'll see why. Here's other sort of some storytelling-ier stuff, some less storytelling-ier stuff that I've done. Well, no, let's say it all comes back to the story. So this presentation is about how to tell stories. If you're a developer, if you're a designer, or if you just have a pretty cool tool at your disposal, using a few techniques. I first came to Google to be one of the first writers for this little guy. This was in mid-2016. My interview was literally the day of I/O, the day Google Assistant was to be announced. It was going to premiere on a chat program called Allo, with smart speakers to follow in the fall. The only problem is we didn't have any content. That's how I was hired. My manager-to-be put an ad on a local New York City video game chat, searching for someone to make video games with no video. At the time, we had no idea what they meant. So this was my first task, to come up with an audio-only way to do something that, for all intents and purposes, no one had ever done only with audio. These days, I'm working in the exact opposite paradigm. I'm doing immersive stuff. And all of this augmented reality, any virtual reality, anything that relies on our eyes as the first thing that we, on our first method of input. So here's a spoiler alert. Here's what I'm going to be talking about. When I talk about game design, I like to say my favorite game writing is in Half-Life 2 because the protagonist says nothing. Also, you can walk away from just about every cutscene. So any words you hear in the game, you're actually choosing to hear. But that's not what's at the heart of Half-Life 2's story. You get its story every time you turn a corner by the architecture, by the worthless objects you pick up and discard, by this huge strider you see, even though you're not going to fight it till way later. Here's a game I love, and I'm horrible at it, and it doesn't make me love it any less. It's Mirror's Edge. You run, that's all you do. I mean, there's jumping and ducking and swinging, but the story of the game is just its actual movements. There's a vague backstory and a silly gun battle or two that I still haven't worked out the controls for. But the story is almost entirely told from moment to moment. The things you see, the things you do. Here's another walking simulator. Pokemon Go. There are a lot of narrative mechanics inside, but the most basic one is you're just moving around. It's literally about discovery, and much of that discovery happens in places you already know, you're already familiar with. So when you play a game, you experience the story by telling it to yourself. Any game gives you tools, a weapon, a spell book, or the ability to make monsters vanish by jumping on top of their heads. And by picking up these things or casting them or jumping on heads, you're telling your own story within the boundaries imposed on you by the game designer. So AR Core, and this is about all AR. I'm saying AR Core because Google pays for my healthcare, but basically, here's what it does. AR, you see virtual content in the physical world. And let me just talk about this conceptually because you all know what AR is. VR is a real you put into an imaginary world. AR is imaginary things put into your world. But the way that AR affects this perceptionally, that's not a word, I'm a writer, sorry, is through motion tracking, environmental understanding, and light estimation. So yeah, you can design it in any language that you want. Now I'm going to talk about tutorials and start by saying that I hate tutorials. Tutorials are like a flabby instruction manual that comes with your kid's bike. You'd rather get the setup completely wrong than sit through and read this perfect bound book before you actually do something. In UX, we call it onboarding, but it's the same idea. Stop telling me what I can do and step aside and let me do it. So when are you telling your user how to use the app, your experience, whatever you're making? It's not the opening screen. It's not even the moment the user sees screenshots. It's when you manage the user's expectations. You want to let them know the size of the experience. And once they've started playing, those first moments set the rules for everything that they're going to be able to do. So when you're making an AR experience, we think in 3 sizes. We think tabletop, room size, or world size. There are always those matrix moments where you think you're looking at one thing, but then it's something completely different. But even that something completely different has to be broadcasted from the start, or else your user won't necessarily know to look for it. We need to tell people what we're going to tell them, even if it's a sleight of hand. You've got to let them know the hands are there. So once you've established that play space, we convince the user to detect their real world surroundings. This is a problem we don't have in conventional games, like the user's already plugged in the power cord. When you've opened a Google Doc, you see a blinking cursor, or Microsoft Word, not being judgmental. Users know what to do. So we give our player a mission. We give them an excuse to explore the world. Mostly we give them a fetch quest. Why do we hate fetch quests in games? Because they so often fill up the dead space between fighting. It's like saying to the player, the thing you're usually going to do is run around and fight people. Now let's get rid of the fighting people part and just run around. In AR, the user journey, the running around, and the technical functionality are exactly the same. Your device and your brain are both discovering the world in harmony. That idea of discovery is at the core of the experience. And this, a lot of the screenshots I'm showing you are from an app called AR Core Elements. And one of the things it does is procedurally generate flora. And procedural generation is really nice because it's synthesizing the app with the world around. It's not just saying like, here's an imaginary floor and we're going to make stuff grow on it. It's saying, oh, there's your floor and let's react to it. So we embrace it. We embrace that procedural generation and hopefully we make it awesome. But how do we make it awesome? These AR techniques don't necessarily feel like storytelling techniques, but they are. Here's one of my favorite game designers, Aristotle. He created a storytelling structure that we still use today. Robert McKee's book Story, whose students have been nominated for something like 200 Academy Awards, is the poster child of the 3-act structure. It's a piece of clear mimeograph paper, and you can lay it on top of any movie, book, or even lots of pop songs, and the outline fits. And if you're thinking about pop songs, the 2nd act bridge is that all is lost moment right before the climax. First, there's an inciting incident. There's an explosion, a birth, a death, your house getting lifted up by a tornado and landing on a witch. Something happens that the character, the main character, you, are not in control of. Then the character reacts to it. They strap on the witch's slippers and they follow the yellow brick road. That's the Act 1 climax. That's the character saying, here's a world, I'm going to do something about it. Then there's Act 2, which is most of the experience. This is the million quests in a video game or the middle hour and a half of a 2-hour movie. And it's a series of events that just get bigger and bigger and more challenging for a character. And this is what we in video games called grinding, which grinding is just when it's sort of flat and you're just doing the same thing over and over. Ideally, the experience builds a little, then the character builds a little, gets more stuff, gets cooler weapons, and then the experience becomes harder so that the cooler weapons don't do quite as much. Anyway, at some point, you hit the end of Act 2 where the character faces complete despair. It's the lowest moment that I talked about when all is lost, the dark night of the soul. You must fall completely before you get up again, says Blake Snyder, who wrote this screenwriting book called Save the Cat. And then you get a complete reversal from the darkest night into the final blaze of glory. So that's the story of every game, whether it's a novel, whether it's a movie, or whether it's a video game. So the first moments of Pac-Man are filled with tension, the frantic thoughts of escape, of limited motion, of being eaten. I can only move left or right. Ghost monsters are rising out of their box and coming for me, followed by the ingestion of your first power pellet, the rush of empowerment. Now the ghost monsters are running away from me. This brief savoring of victory, I can eat them. That cycle quickly reverses itself once the effects of your power pellet wear off, leading the devoured ghost monsters to return to your cell and rejuvenate from a pair of eyes for you to realize your mission within the game, the eradication of all dots from the game board, followed by the continued fluctuation of power. You're powerful, you're not, you have no power, you're powerful, you're no powerful. And then the maze becomes thicker, the stakes are raised, your momentary feeling of victory goes away and you try to get it again. So that's what I mean by making it awesome. That was the immersive version of Pac-Man. But we want to design a world and a world that reacts to our presence because we are doing AR or whatever kind of reality you want. So we want to make our world real. On the screen, you're combining virtual and real world elements. So the key is to let them interact. The more they play together and roll off each other, the more your world will feel like an actual living inhabited place. The virtual and actual world are only 2 dimensions of the experience. So to make the feeling real, we need to add the 3rd dimension, the user. Let your users touch, manipulate, and change as many virtual objects as you can. One of the joys of creating your own reality is messing it all up and never having to clean it up. You can have a food fight in your kitchen and not have to sweep up anything. Here's the biggest obstacle to playing games in AR. How do we hold our phones when we're looking at them? Like this. How can our phones work? Like this. This is NPR's Tiny Desk Concerts, and they started doing VR Tiny Desk Concerts, which is really cool, not just because of, yay, we love VR, but also because the idea of Tiny Desk Concerts is that you're taking someone like Taylor Swift and putting her in this like tiny little crappy office room like we all work in. And by trading that little YouTube video for a 360-degree experience, you're kind of saying, here, you can like join our tiny little crappy office and hang out with Taylor Swift. This is all just a setup for me saying that I want to hang out with Taylor Swift. Anyway, you want to remind users that we're in a 3D space. By designing the mechanics for your experience, you can change their physical position as well as their mental experience. So you can blow your minds by blowing your users' bodies out of their seats. Sorry, I'll say that again. Blow your minds by blowing your users' bodies out of their seats. One of the greatest advantages we have in AR is the size of our space. It's theoretically infinite. You can send users on a fetch quest to China. The problem is that when users are using your app, usually they're sitting at a table. So have something go a little bit out of the range. Show your users the size of the space and give them something to chase. Game mechanics are like the running in Mirror's Edge, the searching for Pokemon in Pokemon Go, the dying over and over again in Dark Souls. I have played Borderlands 2 for over 144 hours, but the story of my experience is not like getting to the end of the game. It's every given moment. It's turning a corner, finding a fetch quest, or finding some sort of thing, or finding a character to talk to that I didn't think was going to be there. So I break that moment by moment action down between the first, second, and third act, the call to action, the hero's quest, and then the culmination. I take advantage of real world environments. I put things just out of reach. I surprise users and I tease them and I offer them rewards for moving around and exploring. Also hidden bonus levels, a time-honored video game tradition. So finding them in familiar spaces in the middle of your living room gives an extra measure of delight. This is from Lego The Hobbit. Remember the first moment of joy where you hit a joystick and the character does exactly what you tell them to? It was a seamless blend of the real and virtual world. You're controlling imaginary characters. It's this ultimate player agency where you have the power to affect this other world that appears on your screen. It also means that every game is, in some sense, a first-person game. You're part of it. When you place objects in your AR scene, users will want to play with them. And the more non-necessary stuff they can pick up and play with, the more they'll want to hunt for the objects that they need to use. So here we set lily pads to be on 2 different surfaces, like a table and a floor. You can't really see that from the camera angle, but pretend you can. I'm just going to do 1 or 2 more things. You also want to give breadcrumbs. The kind of standard ideal is to make your objects blend into reality. But if you want to draw attention to this robot, make the lighting a little bit off. Make your users notice this little spinning robot thing. And by drawing attention to this uncanny valleyness and this like fakeness, users will notice that something's off and they'll want to react to it. Let me just tell you one more thing about jump scares. They're awful. I hate this game. It's genius. But jump scares can also be really wonderful and majestic and beautiful. It's the same notion of surprise happening in 2 very different ways. And here's a third way. It can be silly. You can use a single effect like that to tell all different kinds of stories. So just because you only have a few techniques or a few things that you've developed the animation for, you can deploy them in all different ways. Let me figure out how to stop my screen sharing now to see. Oh man, this is not working, is it?
Your screen's no longer sharing.
Oh, good. Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to cut myself off and to catch up on all the chat messages that I couldn't see because I was looking at that. Someone loves Half-Life 2. Yay.
Thank you, Matthue. And really beautiful presentation. And I'll pass it to Barry if you have any questions.
Hello, I apologize
We have time for one.
noise in my studio. Okay, so what do we got? Thank you so much, Matthue. Great to hear you. Oh, there's a question. Does anyone knows Tail Association? Oh, that was me. Okay. Questions. That is actually a genuine question. Let's make it happen for him. Gotta get one for him. Okay. No one has any questions.
I have a question. How is Google leveraging their map tech in augmented reality? Is that,
It's actually on everybody's phones and not a lot of people know about it. If you get directions to somewhere in Google Maps, if you've ever done something like that, if you need help doing that, just ask me. But there are a few buttons on the bottom. One of them is directions and one of them is live view. And if you hit live view, all of a sudden your camera starts working and you see like big flashing arrows telling you the way to go in your surface, which I think its major use case is getting off of a New York subway station. Like, you know that feeling, there's 20 different exits, you walk up the stairs and you're not sure which way to go? These arrows will tell you. Sorry, I know I'm like working for Google, but it's also been a huge game changer because I don't have very good directional sense.
one more question I think is fascinating. Sorry, Barry, to steal the spotlight.
Oh, it's my question, so let's do it.
Yeah, sure. No, how would you write a procedurally generated story if you could answer that one quickly?
That would be, it is awesome. I played with it. I've never come up with something I'm happy with, but let me just, here's the thing that I can't figure out. So I'm just going to tell you all, and if you make it, let me know so I can play it. AR escape room. Maybe there is one already. That would be awesome. I want to figure out how to like make any room into an escape room and then figure out how to lock people in until they can get out.
That seems like a great idea. If anyone is able to implement that use case, let us know and we'll connect you with Matthue or share it with Matthue yourself. And you're also welcome to share it at a future meetup. Awesome. With that, Matthue, we have to move on to Brian. But it was really great having you. Loved the presentation. It was delightful and enthusiastic. So thank you for joining. Awesome. Next up, we have Brian. Brian, I just have a quick intro for you. If you didn't know Brian, you were inspired by science fiction films. And you're looking to create a world. Brian's looking to create a world showered in augmented reality. With Vermeer, he's building an AR interface to control drones, robots, satellites, and more. He is a self-labeled growth hacker, accused hustler, and bona fide Department of Defense contractor. And while participating in the AFW ERX and TechStar program, Brian learned about working with the Department of Defense. And now the Vermeer platform is now being utilized for national security, and we're excited to learn more about it. Thank you, Brian, for joining.
Cool. Yeah, and thanks, Andy, for having me. And thanks everyone for kind of setting this up. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself and kind of I guess my journey with my company, and then I'm going to show you kind of what we're building and kind of like a video demo. So my company we actually started in kind of a very different place than where we are today. So I started about 6 or 7 years ago, and we started as a drone service cinematography company. So the way to think about that is most of the times, if you've seen a Netflix or HBO movie or TV show and there's a drone shot in it, there's a very good chance it was kind of my company executing those drone missions. So we did Steven Spielberg movies, and we did Fast and the Furious movies, and we did Oscar-winning Best Picture films and things of that nature. And we were definitely the largest company in the world doing that kind of drone service cinematography. But it was kind of odd, you know. I had this drone company, but I never really was that into drones. I was always more kind of interested in the unique acquisition of images and unique kind of methods to take pictures and visualize data. And what happened was in about 2017 or maybe 2016, 2017, I put on a HoloLens for the first time, and I kind of had a revelation of, you know, this is how we should be flying drones and moving other kinds of robots through in kind of this 3D interface. So what happened was I kind of built a little skunkworks division of 2 software engineers in my, you know, 10, 11 person drone service company. And we started to kind of build this on a HoloLens, we started to build this interface to essentially pre-visualize and control drone missions. I thought it was pretty cool, and didn't quite know exactly kind of the market or who to sell it toward. I mean, we were going after kind of like the Hollywood market, and we got interest, and we started to use this with big Hollywood production studios. And then what happened is I got introduced to, you know, some people had kind of suggested I should check out the Department of Defense, that they would be interested in something like this. My honest initial reaction was, you know, what are you kidding me? Doesn't the government have a crashed flying saucer? Like what on earth could they possibly want with what I'm doing? Like, I think what we're doing is really cool, but like, don't they just have all this stuff already? It ends up that they don't. I can kind of get into that a little bit. So the Department of Defense, there's been a tremendous amount of kind of uptick in innovation. They're trying to essentially find innovative technology companies to inject the DoD with, like, you know, innovative tech companies. They essentially, since the end of the Cold War, the large prime contractors like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all those guys, they have no incentive to innovate. They have no incentive to do work fast or cheaply because they have a 10-person monopoly over kind of national security. So the DoD is kind of looking for innovative technology companies. And I was very fortunate. My company got kind of scouted and selected to be part of this, this 10-company cohort funded by the Department of Defense. And there was a few thousand applicants. It was like 10 companies moved to Boston for 4 or 5 months and essentially kind of get schooled in how to sell your technology to the DoD. So I live in New York City. I moved to Boston temporarily in 2020 to kind of be a part of this this program. And, you know, it was like Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until whenever for 4 or 5 months. And I ended up meeting a lot of folks within the DoD. And it was a very interesting perspective because what I kind of know about the DoD, I assumed was kind of like what I had seen in movies. And it wasn't like that at all. The first thing I learned from talking to these folks was that they definitely did not have a crashed flying saucer, because if they did, like none of this would be interesting to them. So that's definitely not a thing. And I just saw that they were using their own imagination to how our kind of product could be utilized for their needs. Like, so they were kind of like coming up with different use cases for what we were building. And within a very short period of time, we ended up winning seven large contracts with the Department of Defense in under a year. It was kind of very, very quick and very unexpected. Yeah, what we're building is we're kind of building, you know, an AR VR interface to visualize and command and control robotic systems. We're doing a lot with kind of drones, and believe it or not, we're doing it with satellites as well. And then there's also kind of like a visual positioning service as well. The DoD kind of has a need for a way to know where things are visually based off of non-GPS capabilities. They're very concerned about GPS failing, so we kind of have our own visual positioning system that we utilize. It's based off of kind of a pre-existing map match. Ultimately, we're kind of like you know, what we're trying to build, and what I kind of think we're trying to build is it's like you know, wouldn't it be cool to hold the world, a real-time 3D model of the world in the palm of your hand, where you could kind of like visualize everything as a 3D movie, and control robots and be kind of like an omniscient sort of god over the real world. So that's a little bit what we're building. I'm going to kind of pull up a demo of kind of our tech stack. If you give me a second. Okay, cool. Can you guys see my screen? Cool. All right, hold on one second. So pretty much what we're doing is we have an existing 3D map of the Earth's terrain, as you could kind of see here. So one of the technologies we have an AI that automatically labels the existing 3D map. So for instance, we kind of automatically know that this is a tall building. We automatically kind of know that this is Smith Street, that these are trees and things of that nature. And we actually have 2 databases. So working with the Department of Defense, it's actually very important to have a global 3D map coverage. And I could kind of get a little bit more into that later on. So this kind of pre-labeled 3D map data means that now we could use like an off-the-shelf natural language processor to give audio commands to a small drone. Hey, Vermeer, fly to the top of the tall building. And the drone will autonomously do that based off of essentially the cues and the existing metadata in the 3D map. And what I want to call your attention to is here, we could visualize the position of what the drone is doing in this augmented reality environment in real time. So as this blue pyramid represents the camera cone of the drone. So as it kind of tilts down in the full motion video or in the real world, the robot, this kind of inverted pyramid is tilting down in kind of this synthetic mixed reality environment here. And then once the drone is in flight, what we could do is we could take full motion video, identify a moving vehicle like this. So a lot of people are doing this, but what we're doing is we are creating a geo-registered avatar of the vehicle and projecting it back into the 3-dimensional augmented reality world. So as you see, as the car moves, the red sphere moves as well in the augmented reality world. And this is just another example of it. So as the bus is moving here, you can see we're creating a geo-registered avatar and projecting it into the synthetic environment here as well. So DoD likes this because it kind of gives, we're kind of taking full motion video and kind of converting it to kind of like an interactive 3-dimensional movie. It gives much heightened level of situational awareness. You could do a lot of stuff with this X, Y, Z, and T data that we're getting from the bus. One of those things is, one of the other benefits is that, transmitting all this visual data, all these pixels requires a tremendous amount of bandwidth. But with this system, it requires very little bandwidth because we're essentially just transmitting X, Y, Z, and T. So the thing that's underlying, kind of the thing that's allowing us to place this red dot here in the 3D world is our visual positioning system. So the way that works is, it's a localization method using computer vision. So a lot of people are familiar with it. And it's obviously kind of like the cornerstone of, I'm going to pull up another video real quick. Hold on. But we're having to use a global database. So the DoD has contracted a company that uses satellite imagery to create a global 3D database of the world from oblique satellite images. You could see what that looks like here in the bottom right. So our algorithms need to work on kind of this degraded 3D map of the world. So you can see this happens to be Hoboken, New Jersey. There's nothing special about Hoboken other than the fact that I live close to Hoboken and I need a place to experiment. So as we fly a drone, in this case, we could essentially understand and reverse engineer the position of the drone simply by looking at the picture of where the drone is flying. So this is done without any kind of metadata of GPS. This is purely based on vision. And then we kind of got real curious. We wondered if it would work, on the ground as opposed to, just from the sky. So we took a couple GoPros, put them on a helmet, walked around this area of Hoboken. You could see we're identifying unique features from the full motion video, extracting them, and then comparing them against 3D models of the global 3D database here. And then we're assigning confidence scores. When we get a couple highly confident matches, we're essentially able to reverse engineer and figure out your position. So a lot of people, for defense applications want to know, will it work at night in kind of more natural environments? What we've done here is we put it on a boat. This white line represents the GPS the boat actually took. And then we had 2 night vision scopes on it. So as we drove the boat south, we're localizing the full motion video to this existing 3D map. And then we're creating this bright green line, which is the estimation of where the algorithm thinks that we are. And you can see how accurate it is to the GPS coordinates that the boat actually took. So anyway, I took a little bit of a deep dive into the visual positioning system because I just thought it was important. But I'm gonna get back to kind of the bones. And then so this is kind of our command and control for small UAS systems. So users in a mixed reality environment. This blue pyramid, once again, represents the camera, a small drone system. This individual is actually standing in this building that's represented in the hologram here. And there's actually a small drone outside the window. So with simple gesture controls in near real time, we're able to move and manipulate the position of the drone. Okay, cool. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is that, hold on one second, is this technology that we call AVA. So we're able to, as you see to the left, so this is just one of our engineers. We're recording him with just kind of a full motion video camera. We're able to essentially track him, track his pose. So as he's moving, we're kind of animating this geo-registered avatar of him. So he's pose estimated and geo-registered to this existing kind of 3D map of a basketball court in this scenario. So as he moves here, he's kind of like the puppeteer to this puppet. And then what this allows, and this is all happening in real time. So what this allows us to do is we can now take full motion video from like a basketball game and in real time render it as kind of like this 3-dimensional video game where we can move a camera anywhere we want within this kind of like 3D environment. So as he's like bouncing the basketball, he's bouncing the basketball here. One of the very cool things is now we can literally watch a game, through the eyeballs of a particular player. And you can see we've got, we've gotten the graphics to be like, I would say like a PS1, PS2, kind of level of fidelity. And where this is kind of going, the reason the things that the DoD wants to use is they essentially want to kind of, here, I'll show you right now. So we could take kind of a camera box, put it on like a warfighter's helmet. We have full motion video feeds coming right out of the box. We're streaming, all these pixels. It's a tremendous amount of bandwidth that in the DoD, they don't always have a lot of kind of bandwidth. They're using satellites to communicate. So we have all this kind of full motion video coming off. We have other soldiers here with camera boxes behind him. You can see kind of the video feeds coming off of them. And then what we're doing is in real time on the edge, so at the side of the camera, we are creating these geo-registered pose estimated avatars and projecting them into this existing 3D map of the environment. So you can see kind of the amount of bandwidth you save. So here there's a lot of pixels you're transmitting. Here you're not really transmitting any pixels. You're really just transmitting kind of X, Y, Z, and T and the position of kind of like the pose of their body. And then you could also kind of like visualize the scene in kind of like this really cool virtual position. So this is just a Unity project. So this could be put into AR, VR. It could be put in kind of any platform like that. And you can see like a side-by-side here. So as like, they're running with their camera systems on their helmets, we're rendering it in real time in this kind of mixed reality environment here. And then you could kind of see the side-by-side here. So here to the top left is the full motion video and all the bandwidth. And then to the right is kind of this rendered 3D environment and the tremendous savings in terms of kind of bandwidth. So yeah, so that's I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to show. So we're heavily involved in national security defense. I could talk about all things AR, VR, drones, satellites, what it's like to work for national security, things of that nature. Happy to answer questions and take it from there.
Awesome. So Barry, feel free to handle questions. Let's take one or two and then open it up to the floor for just like a few more minutes for questions with some of the other speakers.
Okay. Thanks so much. Awesome stuff. And I actually have a contact for you as well from Israel that's working on satellite antennas and working with drone operators in the IAI, the Israeli Air Force. So
that'd be cool.
Yeah, cool. Great. So here's one. Were you scouted through one of the works variances? I don't know what variants, not Omicron. AFWorks, SoftWorks, I don't know what works is, but I guess you know what that is. I know what the AFRL is.
Yeah.
But I don't know what works is.
Yeah, I know what AFWorks is. So it was AFWorks hired Techstars, which I'm sure you guys know about Techstars. So the DoD hired Techstars to essentially run their innovation incubator. The DoD was like, we don't know where to find startups or how to talk to them or how they think, but you Techstars, you do. So they hired Techstars to like run and find these companies. So it ran for 3 years. I was in the 3rd year, and now that program essentially doesn't exist anymore. But AFWorks is the kind of the they run a SBIR program, a SBIR program, which is essentially like $1 million contract to take your existing technology and mold it to the needs of the DoD. And that's what I was very successful in winning. I won 5 of them in under a year.
Wow, that's impressive. Nice, congratulations. Yeah, the SBR is like small business
innovation research.
Innovation research, yeah, out of the defense contract. Sweet. Okay, there's more acronym. Well, before the acronyms, Alex asks, did security clearance make limits on software and hardware usage? I guess data usage. Software.
No, not at this stage, but like it's getting like as I'm kind of getting deeper with customers, that is something to be concerned with. And I do have, I have applied for a TS clearance, top secret clearance, and 2 of my full-time employees have TS SCI clearances. So it's, if you want to seriously work with the government, like you could get away with doing like SBIRs. You could like get away with just getting the SBIRs and not requiring that. You do need to have US-based labor force, but if you want to kind of get real serious and win the $100 million contracts, you are going to need people with clearances on your team.
Right. And like you said, you can't work with countries like China. I imagine they have to be US or at least NATO or something like that.
So yeah, so I'm actually not an expert, and kind of like it gets. You really need like a lawyer. Like it per contract. It depends. It always all depends. And I'm not an expert on it, so I would kind of punt on that and say this. You really want to speak to an attorney who specializes in that sort of stuff.
Okay, Barry, if you are looking to work on some type of concept that you need clearance for, definitely reach out to an attorney.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, get your lawyer up. Yes. Okay. Want to finish with one more question on the other? Dan has got 2 acronyms, so I'll give you this 2-part question. So I don't even know if they're related. I don't know what these.
And then let's open it up to the floor. If the other speakers are there as well, and there's some other questions, we could do that as well. But we'll.
Yeah. So let's finish with this. I don't know if they're related. If not, just answer as you wish. Does your surveying enhance DTED, not the DTs? Can you publicly say what C4 ISR players or environments you are integrating with?
So it looks like Dan is talking about DTED. DTED is kind of like a map database. So Dan, we're not working with DTED. We're working with a higher fidelity, like a 1 meter resolution map. So hopefully that answers that question. Can you publicly say what? And no, I don't think I can right now in terms of who we're integrating with.
Thank you, Brian. Love the platform.
Cool. Thanks for the chance to show it.
Yeah. Is there any way we could try it out, or it's kind of just for the government right now?
So there this is like an embarrassing thing to say. There was an app on the App Store. I don't even know if it's on the App Store anymore, because we've essentially like we've gotten so much work from the DoD over the last year and a half or two that our kind of focus from the app.
Is this it?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, let me know if it runs.
Okay.
But most of our kind of most of our stuff is kind of shifted right now towards working with the Department of Defense.
Super cool. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Sure,
All right.
my pleasure.
Any other questions, or if anyone has anything to share, we'll take a few minutes to just take some additional questions or see some other projects from folks in the audience. If not, Barry can give us some words of wisdom. And if not, we can close out the night. And we really appreciate everyone joining New York Augmented Reality tonight. I think it was a great event, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. And we'll see you next time.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Oh, great stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Vade. What
Nice
did you
hair.
have for dinner, Barry?
I had an amazing concoction of meat, chopped meat. Chopped meat with asparagus, and spinach. Yes, it was marvelous.
Spinaggio.
You're looking younger and younger every day, Andy. You're unaging. Is that
Yeah,
AR?
you too. It's AR aging. Or Asian.
Yeah, so when are we going to meet in person, people? Let's in.
You know what? We have a venue, but I don't know if it's the right time. I don't know if it's right.
When's the right polls out there? We got 16 people.
Does anyone have input on when the right time is? Fa?
We could just do it. Whoever comes. It could just be you and me. We'll be physical, and everyone else is virtual.
I guess you're right. I mean, we're speaking. Yeah. I want to find a venue that could be recurring, because just to do a one-off in a place is, I don't think it really is going to have a, I don't know if that could generate community versus having the same venue.
I hear that. Yeah, you're so that you're basically saying anyone has a space that we can use on a recurring basis for cheap. Please let us know.
Or for free.
Or cheaper than cheap. Yes. When it's warm, it's not going to get warm. We're in global.
It's warm.
Not going to get warm.
Global colding.
It just stays cold. Actually, I went to Wim Hof. Wim Hof AR yet? The Wim Hof method. You take freezing cold showers, and you can put submerge your hands in a cold and your feet in like snow, and it freezes. And it's awesome. So I recommend it. Yeah, I'll demonstrate for y'all.
Thank you. Okay, for those who are still here, thank you, Bart. You're the man. Preloaded, an awesome augmented reality studio. Preloaded. They're looking to hire some brilliant people in augmented reality location-based projects. So that's Preloaded. They're looking for Unity developers, 3D designers, tech art directors, and all that. So I'll put the email in the chat.
Yes, sign up for Andy's Augmented Report newsletter weekly. Wonderful reading. And join the Slack. We also have a LinkedIn group. We're not really using that, or LinkedIn page, not using it that much, but I'm sure we will.
And I think it's time to close. Thank you,
Bye,
Barry.
Paul.
You are the man.
Peace.
Thank you.